Okay, and she's not going to. So she's going to take whatever it is there and bring that all onto her life, and she's going to deliver it all to the people she ever negotiates with. That's what you run into every time you go into a negotiation. So sometimes people are on automatic pilot. They don't mean to be, they just are. Okay, we are all creatures of what we are. So what makes us tick? What makes the person that you're going to negotiate with has a certain personality. They have a certain perception. They have a certain need. They have a hierarchy of needs that they're looking to have satisfied when they're negotiating. This might sound a little bit technical, but these are the people, you got to remember what you're dealing with here. If I ask you to spend $500,000 on something, do you feel comfortable with that?
No.
No, of course not. But we ask people to do that every day. The average house is $500,000. Or if I ask you to give me your $500,000 house to trust me because I have 70 hours of education and you should, do you feel comfortable with that? You do?
Oh.
Would you feel comfortable with your doctor having 70 hours of education?
No.
What about your pilot?
Absolutely not.
What about the person who handles your finances? Tax guy? Dentist? Okay, so the point is that they're going to evaluate us on our skill proposition, on what value we bring to the table, and they're going to decide whether they're making a good decision or a bad decision. The thing about real estate is a very, very relationship-built business. And the funny thing is that take away all your skills and all your negotiating traits, they've decided to give the place to you or not give the place to you the moment you walked in the door. They sized you up and they made a decision. The rest of the time you spend there is going to either reaffirm the decision they make or change their mind somehow. And if you have to change their mind because they decided not to give it to you because they didn't like the way you approached them and they don't like the way you don't look them in the eye, or you shook their hand very weakly, or you invaded their personal space somehow, some way, well, you have to figure that one out. It's a very personable business. And it's a very perception-oriented business. So you can't always control what goes on in the outside, but you can always control what goes on in the inside. As a professional real estate agent, and as a seasoned negotiator, what you have to realize is one thing. If you don't stay in control, nothing else will. The person that you're negotiating with could scream, yell, set their hair on fire, smash their hands on the desk. It doesn't matter. You cannot get out of control. As you get more seasoned in this business, you will notice one thing. That it doesn't matter what's happening with an attorney's clients, attorneys always remain calm. And the reason why is because they know something that you don't. They know if somebody wants to buy and somebody wants to sell, and they really want to do it, they'll find a way. What happens to us perception-wise is when these things are going on, we have this whole thought train that comes into our head. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I get out of hand? What if I did this? What if I did that? They won't give me the listing. They won't like me. If they don't like me, I won't get the listing. If I don't get the listing, I don't get the sale. If I don't get the sale, I don't have the money. If I don't have the money, I can't pay the rent or the mortgage. And for that, I'll be out in the cold. Right? Or I'll starve and I'll die. And that's what happens. Our fight or flight comes into effect. We're not thinking rationally. We're not thinking like we should. So if we understand where the seller is, and we understand where the buyer is, where's the real estate agent? What's the real estate agent's mindset? Let's take it on a situation. To close the deal. Okay, real estate agent wants to ABC, right? They want to always be closing? Okay, that's great. Let me ask you this. If you want to always be closing, what happens if you go in and, let's say you go in a for sale by owner? All right, you got in the door, all the parties are there. Are they happy to see you?
No.
They may be. There are some people that list their house for sale by owner because they want to attract aggressive real estate agents. Okay? And there's all for sale by owners start with the end in mind. They don't say, you know what, we're gonna do this for the rest of our life. If we don't sell, it doesn't matter how long it takes, we're gonna just keep the house on the market, we're never gonna give it to a real estate agent, and we're just gonna try to sell it ourselves. They don't do that. What they do is they say, we're gonna try this for a little bit at a time, and if that doesn't work, we're going plan B. That's why 85% of for sale by owners sell through brokers. Okay? 85%. So when you go into a for sale by owner and they're a little bit adverse, does it have anything to do with you? It has everything to do with them. People react the way they react. You're not going to change that. The way you react, that's what matters. That's what matters. So if someone tells you something and you immediately show that that deflates you, they lose confidence in you. People show character when things are at their worst, not when things are at their best. If I'm going to give you my $500,000 house, maybe I'm going to test you a little bit. Maybe I'm going to say things to see if I can push your button. Because if I can push your button, then a buyer can push your button. And if a buyer can push your button, maybe you're not going to go for every last dollar that I want you to do it. You're asking me for a $500,000 piece of property, and you're going to also ask me for a pretty sizable amount of money in order to sell it. How do I know you're worth it? So I'll ask you again. Where is the real estate agent's mindset? I was just told they were supposed to be closing. How many people agree with that? Not saying it's wrong, but how many people agree with it? Do you think a real estate agent should always be closing?
I mean, ideally, but in the case right before when you asked where it should be, I was thinking more about the person that facilitates, you know, like the peacekeeper.
How much money do you make facilitating? Do you get a facilitation check?
No,
You always want to be closing.
You always want to be closing.
Okay.
You agree with that? What about you?
No, I don't think I agree with that.
Okay, what do you agree with?
I think you should have a mindset where you're gonna be the bridge between the buyer and the seller and
Mhm.
try to build that relationship with each of them and them together. And I think that will enable you to close.
You think the byproduct of bridging the gap between buyer and seller will be able to give you your desired outcome?
I think so.
Okay, all right. What about you, Rose?
Can you explain to me what we're talking about?
What is the mindset? We talked about the mindset of the seller. We spoke about the mindset of the buyer. I think we understand that. What I'm asking is, what is the mindset of the real estate agent? Before we go into negotiation, we have to know where everybody stands, don't we?
As a real estate agent?
As a real estate agent, what's our goal?
Oh.
Why are we there? What's our purpose?
To get the listing.
Okay, so ABC, always be closing, right? So we really don't facilitate, we really don't bridge the gap, what we do is close. What do you think?
I would say half and half. I do agree with her because I feel like, I agree with you too, like I said, 50-50, because I think that if you show genuine care for both sides,
Mhm.
they're more likely to do business with you rather than work with someone that's like, I just want the money, as opposed to actually caring.
Okay. When you go to your doctor, is there any other reason why that doctor is there other than to work on you medically? That's his job, and that's what he gets paid for, correct? Okay. When you go to your attorney, is there any other reason why you go to your attorney other than a legal matter? That's his job. That's why he's there, correct? And when you go to your accountant and you do your taxes, or you have a tax matter, or you have a money matter, is there any other reason why you're there other than that? Is there? No. That's how he gets paid. So why in the world would you think as a real estate agent, you're not there to do anything but transact? That's all you're there to do. You're there to make the transaction happen. You're there to get the listing. You're there to make sure it gets sold. In the essence, isn't that what they want? Isn't it?
Yes.
See, we're nothing of the other. We bring all those hats into play. You can have a very good relationship with somebody, but you need to understand what your position is in this. And your position is this, is to transact. It's not to be their friend. It's not to be their confidant. It's not to be their negotiator. They're going to do the negotiation. You're going to do all the transaction. That's what you're there to do. And that's what they'll appreciate you doing. It doesn't make you cold. It doesn't make you callous. It doesn't make you less likable. But I'll tell you one thing else it will make you: poor. You need to understand your purpose. So before you negotiate anything, you need to understand why you're there, and you need to understand why they're there. Is the seller there to sell? Is the buyer there to buy? With a real estate agent in the middle of that, bridging that gap, being able to bring these people together, might they be able to get the seller more money and get the buyer to a place where they need to go in a time that they need to be there? Isn't that why we're there? So please, you are not consultants, okay? You are salespeople. Be proud of it. It's one of the highest paid professions in the world. Salespeople get paid very, very well because few people can do it well. So what I'm going to tell you is you need to know your place, and your place is to do the transaction. You want to call it always be closing, go right ahead. That might be a little callous for you, but that's the only way the dinner's going to get on the table and the bills are going to get paid. Once you have control over your mind, anything you want is possible. Once you control the situation and know who you are, you can then take that and put it anywhere you want into the equation and pretty much get the outcome that you desire. As long as you don't let your emotions override what you got to do. And the way we let emotions override what we have to do, okay, is we are under these false impressions that we have to be their friends. They need to like us. If you're bringing that person a lot of money, they like you. Take my word for it. If you're going to give it to them in such a way that it's going to be less hassle to them, they like you. Okay? So it's not so important that they like you. They need to respect you enough that what? That they refer you to other people to do business. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So that's the most important part. That's why we're there. This is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What it is it's a little demonstration of how people feel and perceive themselves. So psychological needs is we need air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, and reproduction. Right? So the most basic need is us. We provide this. Shelter. Don't we? Isn't that our job? We're shelter providers. If we were in the Stone Age, we'd sell caves. Right? Okay. But then there's safety involved. So we get personal security, employment, resources, health, and property. Isn't that us too? So when people own real estate, they start satisfying all these things, or their perception becomes the satisfaction of all these needs. Let's go here. Love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection. Do homes give you that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Here's number one. When someone is thinking of putting their house on the market, is it a home or is it a house?
House.
Why?
Because they're leaving what used to be a home and becomes their house now.
Right. Home has all kinds of connections. When they leave it, they take their home with them. Now it's a house. When somebody comes in, they make it a home. Right? So, love and belonging, friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection, gives you all that. Esteem, respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, and freedom. When you buy your first home, what is that? That's the actuality of the American dream, yes or no? Your piece of the rock. You've arrived. Isn't owning a home status? So when you're negotiating with a buyer, this is what they're trying to achieve. When you're negotiating with a seller, this is what they feel they're giving up in order to go somewhere else. So when you understand the needs, and look where it goes here, self self-actualization, desire to become the most that one could be. That might be the end of it, right? They sell their house to move on to something else. Because doesn't a house, how many purposes does a home have? How many purposes does a home have? 2. You might think of more, but let's say 2, right? The first is to give you and your family enough shelter until they're grown. And then after they're grown is to give you and your significant other enough money for the rest of your life to move on. That's what they do. So if that's the understanding, and you understand these needs, might things get a little dicey during the negotiation? Might people get a little unreasonable if they think they're protecting their shelter, or if they think they're giving up security, or they think that it might be something health or resources involved? It's not that every need is every person, it's just that all these needs belong to those people. And that's your negotiation. Some people might call it their pain. Are they willing to give up this to get this? Are they willing to give up this to get this? You follow? Let's talk about esteem for a moment. Why do some people drive a $20,000 car and other people drive a $50,000 car? Ego, perception. Right? When I'm behind the wheel of my $50,000 car, does it get me anywhere else that I need to go? Does it have more wheels? Does it get me there faster? Do I appear somewhere unbelievable? No, but it gives me a different feeling when I'm behind there. So let's take that into houses. When somebody looks at a house, do they necessarily need a 3,000 square foot house if it's just them and their husband? No. But why do they buy one?
Makes them feel good.
And because they can. See, they've arrived. It's the perception, it's the self-esteem, it's the status, it's the recognition. It's the keeping up with the Joneses, right? So you have all that going on. So you have to remember, when you turn around and you say, oh, the seller's being so unreasonable, or this buyer doesn't understand, you don't get it. They're somewhere in between here, you haven't found it yet. Because if you can find what it is that makes these people tick, do you think you can negotiate with them better?
Yeah.
Oh, you're 100% correct. Decision making, right? Alternatives, uncertainty, high-risk consequences, interpersonal issues, and complexity. These are all the things that are involved in decision making. What you want to work with as a real estate agent is you want to work with alternatives, and you want to work with uncertainty, you want to work with high-risk consequences, and interpersonal issues and complexity. We don't really worry about those. But let's talk about alternatives. Diana, let me ask you a question. This has been the best offer that you've seen thus far, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And my question to you is, although this may not be the best offer, it is the best offer we've seen thus far.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it's worth it for us to buy back the house from these people for $15,000? Because that's what we're doing. See, that's the alternative, right? She can hold out for the $15,000 extra in the presupposed that I'm giving her, or she can understand that by doing what she's doing, in essence, is she's buying back the house from these people for $15,000. Right? My question is we could try to find the buyer for the extra money, but all buyers come with different circumstances, correct? So how do we know that the next buyer that comes along that might be willing to give you a little bit more money might have conditions that may not suit you? Do you want the devil you know or the devil you don't? Which one works better?
The one you know.
The one you know. There's the uncertainty. It's the uncertainty of what may come, fear of the unknown. Do you think they like the process?
No.
Do you think they like having people come through their home?
No.
Of course not. It makes them feel uncomfortable. So they'd like to end that situation as soon as possible. So, and they may be willing to give up something if they don't? What if there's a high-risk consequence involved? What if they're just making it owning this house, but owning another house of less money would make life a lot more comfortable? If we understood that, couldn't we bring that a little bit more up to the forefront and let them know that it might not be worth the risk? Let's say you're renting an apartment, okay? You're renting an apartment, the landlord's asking $2,200 a month, you have somebody who's offering $2,100 a month. But the landlord wants the apartment rented now, and the buyer wants to wait to rent it till the end of the month. How much money is the landlord actually losing? He wants to rent it now. The buyer wants to rent it at the end of the month. That's a full month's rent, right? Then he wants to take off $100 a month in order to do that. How do you think the landlord feels about that situation?
Not happy about it.
They don't feel too good. Now, for the most part, when people rent apartments, do they rent them right away, or do they rent them 15 days and 30 days out?
But yeah,
15 and 30 days out. Nobody comes in and says, okay, fine, I'll take it as the first. And if they do, might they be in a situation that you may not want that person? Right? Because they need something right away? Because that's kind of, you know, a little bit on the Fugazi side. Wouldn't you say? All right. So how would you bridge that gap? What would you say? What would you say to that person to try to make them understand that maybe this guy's good for them or maybe they're not good for them? Where's the balance?
I would offer another security deposit.
So you're going to double up on the security even though that he's going to be losing a month and then he's going to be losing at least another $1,200,
Yeah,
right?
I would.
Okay, so you think that's going to be bridging the gap. Anybody think, you think that works? Think the buyer's going to give you another security? Because I know they want to give you your fee. So you think they're going to give you another month's security?
kind of tough though.
What's that?
Kind of a little tough.
Okay, a little tough. All right, what's another way we could do it? Negotiate, come on. What does the landlord want to do?
Rent it right away.
Rent it right away, okay? What does the buyer want to do? He wants it both his way, right? He wants money off plus he wants to wait a month. So, can you do either or? Couldn't you do either or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? No money off, you take it at the end of the month,